Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Good morning and welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. It is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to everyone streaming across all of the platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Act TV, our partners at Act TV. Good morning to you. We are going to be joined, as always, on Wednesdays by our sister, Nomiki Kantz, for Solidarity Wednesdays. She'll be joining us momentarily as well. We'll be joined by Dr. Carl Mack, always bringing it and holding it down for us. This morning, we are going to continue to keep our eyes on what's happening in Ukraine. We are now approaching day 14 of the Russian-Ukraine war, with over 2 million refugees have already fled the nation. I'm joined this morning by Taisa Semenova, who is a national reporter for the Kiev Independent. First and foremost, a solidarity with you and everyone in that region, particularly the Ukrainians. How are you this morning, all things considered?
Thank you. I'm currently in Poland in safety myself, and I've seen at the border that Poles were extremely welcoming to fleeing Ukrainians. And Poland has accepted already more than 1.2 million Ukrainian refugees. And at the Polish side of the border, many volunteers provide Ukrainians with water, food, warm clothing, anything they need. And more than 500,000 Poles joined a national-wide Facebook group to support Ukrainians, to find them accommodation, to find them a job, to provide them with anything they need so they easily adapt. But I'm concerned that the UN thinks that the number of refugees will grow at least twice. So over the time, probably the support will decrease. However, I'm hoping that's not going to happen. That's not going to be the case. And now the reaction of ordinary Poles is, I think, is not quite what Putin expected when he thought that Ukrainians would be met with, hatred, or they are going to be not welcomed, as we saw this with the previous refugee crises in the EU. But reality is quite the opposite.
Right. I wonder if that was a miscalculation on his part, or was he being fed the wrong information, or did he really believe in the propaganda campaign? And I say it that way because of reports from Russian soldiers who, once they got into these regions, were treated and called fascist. It seems as though the propaganda may have been pretty successful domestically, but the idea of Ukrainians being scary did not saturate globally.
Yeah, that's true. I believe that was the miscalculation. And I think that Putin and his propaganda machine created the reality that he himself kind of fell into. So he lost touch with what actually happens. So when Russian troops entered Ukraine, I think many of them were surprised that they were not greeted with flowers, as many war prisoners, they claimed that they didn't know where they were going. They say that they were supposed to be at some military exercises. But recently, the Security Service of Ukraine published a video where one of the prisoners of war, Russian, he admitted that he knew he was doing what he was doing. He had the task to occupy Kharkiv, the city in east of Ukraine, in 3 days, and he had the task to attack the civilian infrastructure, to fire missiles there, to shoot civilians. And he said that that was the part of the denazification operation, what they claim it to be.
I want to go to this clip of retired U.S. general on Poland offering fighter jets for Ukraine and the subsequent denial of that by President Biden. Let's take a listen to this.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Actually, no, there's a clip that we're getting ready to play, and it is of a retired U.S. general on Poland offering to send fighter jets to assist the Ukrainian people. Dwayne, if we have that clip, run that for me.
ABC News contributor and retired General Robert Abrams joins us now. General Abrams was an advisor to former U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel during the last invasion of Ukraine, and more recently was the head of U.S. forces in Korea. The Polish government announced today it was ready to immediately hand over all of its MiG-29 fighter jets to the United States and deploy them to an air base in Germany. But then late today, the Pentagon weighed in and pushed back, saying that it's up to the Polish government to give these planes to Ukraine, saying they didn't think that Poland's proposal is, quote, a tenable one.
This would be purely speculation on my part, because I agree. I think the announcement by the Poles it's inexplicable, actually, for a number of reasons, and it hugely complicates an intended transfer. But perhaps, and the Poles have been great partners, but perhaps, by passing them, to the United States in Germany gives the Poles a veiled sense of plausible deniability that it was not a direct transfer to the Ukrainians for fear of Russian retaliation. I don't know. It's pure speculation, because it's really unbelievable to think that they would move those aircraft from about 400 miles from Ukraine to 1,200 miles from Ukraine. It's almost crazy. There is a way, by the way, if the planes were sent to Ramstein Air Base and then moved. I think the Ukrainian military is capable of exfiltrating some Ukrainian pilots. They could be flown by NATO aircraft to Ramstein, check out the aircraft and so forth, and then they could be flown back. Although it's at the edge of their legs, I think. They'd probably need extended leg tanks, fuel tanks, external fuel tanks to be able to make it back. But I think that's all doable. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It would probably take a week or so to turn this around. But it would help out the Ukrainian Air Force.
We're joined by Dr. Carl Mack to expand this conversation. And again, we're joined by Taissa Semenova, national reporter for the Kiev Independent. I wanted to play that clip in full context because of the conversation of the no-fly zone, the different scenarios, the different strategies that are being concocted, potentially including some of these fighter jets. Can you tell us a little bit more about that proposal, much as you know about it? Taissa, if you would.
I would say that Ukraine indeed needs more aircrafts, and the discussion for the no-fly zone, Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky has been pleading for it since the day one. And I personally believe that that needs to be done urgently. Because the civilian infrastructure continues to be attacked every day. War crimes are being committed every day. And Russia needs to be stopped immediately. While we're so grateful for the economic support we're getting and sanctions, there's still no much reason to believe that this is going to stop Putin. And as for nuclear threat, that I know that many Western observers are worried that in case of imposing a no-fly zone, then Putin will launch nuclear attack. I think that would be not the case. I think that he uses this threat just for the blackmail, for what he believes would force West to be political capitulation. I don't think he gone completely insane. I think that saying that would be at least underestimating the enemy. And I believe he understands that nuclear power doesn't understand where the border lies between Ukraine and Russia, so he wouldn't damage his own people,
Absolutely. Good morning, Dr. Mack. I'd love to bring you into this conversation. How are you?
I'm very good. Good morning, Ben. Good morning, Taissa. And Ben, in regards to that, I could not agree with the general more. Just on its face, it appears that, Poland is afraid of the possible retaliation if they themselves give the jets to Ukraine immediately. And as Sister Taissa has stated, this is a critical situation. Time is not on anybody's side. The Ukrainian folks could use those jets immediately. And logistically, it doesn't make sense that if Poland is saying that they want to supply fighter aircrafts to the Ukrainian army, and then want to say, well, let us send them to the United States. And then it gives the appearance that the United States Army, look, we gave the jets to the United States. We didn't give them to the Ukrainian army. I do not understand the sincerity in their proposal. If you want to assist the Ukrainian people, give the jets to them directly. Now, I think part of it is that retaliation aspect is there's been much talk that if the world stands by and allow Putin to occupy Ukraine, as he has done Crimea, then next in line, maybe it's Poland. And then Poland could certainly be the, conspiracy speaking, Poland could be the next victim of this, because now maybe Putin looks at it and says, look, you gave Ukraine jets, so now we want to come after you. So I do not understand the logistics, and nor do I take their offer to be very sincere. If they can't man up, if you will, and directly give those jets to the Ukrainian people and let the whole world know that we are against what Putin is doing, and we have no shame in trying to assist the Ukrainian people.
To that point, Thais, I want to ask, in the response from the global community has been one of stark solidarity. It seems like a lot of rallying around NATO, a lot of rallying international support against Vladimir Putin. But I'm curious as to some of that same propaganda that was present in Russia being present in Ukraine and around the globe and other places. I'd like to know, in your research and everything that you're studying, what elements are still in play in terms of the propaganda, the media elements, because, there was inside help in Ukraine, even if those people have evacuated now. Could you speak to that?
Yes, unfortunately, the power of Russian propaganda is the propaganda is way more effective than the West have ever realized. And for example, in the occupied Crimea, people were watching Russian TV, and I personally spoke to a guy whose mother didn't believe him when he said that he was hiding in shelter from Russian bombs. So he called her to tell her that he was alive, and she didn't believe him because she watched so much of Russian propaganda. And I think that, of course, some people, they are subscribed to Russian TV channels, media outlets, internet media outlets, and those who received information from that sources, of course, they are a little out of touch with the reality. As for propaganda as being spread now, I've seen a lot of articles on how Poles are not happy with Ukrainian refugees' behavior from the Russian side. But I personally talked to many Polish volunteers, and nobody expressed me that. So I'm quite certain this is the message that Russian propaganda is now trying to spread.
Thaisa,
go ahead, Dr. Mack.
Thaisa, yesterday we had a very serious discussion from an African-American, from a Black perspective, of what we have heard, and certainly I'd certainly like you to give us insight on it. And, what we discussed yesterday was the reports of areas of discrimination against Blacks who live in Ukraine, study in Ukraine, not only in their transportation and trying to be evacuated, but the way that they have been treated at the borders, given that it appears that there was a lot more stringency in allowing them to cross over the borders versus white Ukrainians. So can you give us some insight on that?
I personally didn't see any disrespectful attitude from the border guards. I would have to unfortunately say that I've seen some of that behavior from Ukrainian men who were trying to evacuate their families. They were pushing foreigners away from the border so their wives and children could cross it instead. But as for officials, I personally didn't see that happening.
So you that's one. Go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that's one angle we didn't think about yesterday, Dr. Mack, was, personal individuals at the border who are trying to scramble for their own lives. But go ahead, Dr. Mack, what's your question?
No, so obviously that is an issue that has permeated within our community. And granted that
absolutely,
we certainly want to have support for the Ukrainian people, but it is disturbing when we as Blacks in this country, subjected to some of the most horrific areas of racism and discrimination, find that at a time when this country is under attack, to know that there's any racism or discrimination coming from supposedly allies against Putin as it applies to blacks. So it's certainly something that we would like for you all to take a look at and certainly voice that it is a concern for us as black folks here who are very supportive and very sympathetic to the Ukrainian people. But that means all of the Ukrainian people, our people who are there from Africa studying and those who have decided to make Ukraine their home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thais, if you have an extra moment, we're going to be joined by Nomiki Konst. She joins us every Wednesday for Solidarity Wednesdays. And I can't think of any scenario more important for us to have solidarity around than to push back against Vladimir Putin's push into Ukraine. Good morning, Nomiki. How are you? I'm sorry. I think I have your audio
muted.
now. That it is such as the world of the pandemic still. I wanted to bring you into this conversation, Nomiki, because you and I, we study on a regular basis about the global pan-reactionary movement, of which I believe Vladimir Putin is a key leader. And why it is so important for us to stop Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. And of course, this is important to Ukrainians, but I need this to be applicable to Americans as well. Why is this so important for us?
Well, I mean, it was essentially a declaration of war without openly declaring it. He can't declare it because he might be accused of war crimes, which has been discussed ad nauseum at this point. But I think, to bring it back home in a micro level and what's happening right now and what led up to it, I woke up this morning and on the front page of the New York papers where I live, a New York banker was charged with being an agent of Russia who was heading up the headquarters, I guess, for a Russian propaganda unit in which they have been for well over a decade, almost 20 years, finding ways to spread misinformation, disinformation in the United States to sow dissent, to sow, some sort of chaos, which he's been very successful at doing. And, this is something that I think you and I have talked about extensively on this show, on my show, in person. It's hard to know, but we have definitely seen that there's been messaging that goes against progressive and liberal, basically the roots of liberalism. If we are liberals, if we are actual liberals by definition, we believe in democracy. And it doesn't just mean democracy here, it means democracy everywhere and giving people the right to choose. What Putin has done effectively is just remind folks, this is a guy who imprisons his enemies, kills his enemies, including journalists. And, whether it's shutting down information in his own country right now because he doesn't want Russians to understand what he's doing, I think they know. I don't think it's going to work, given that, everything is shut down. This isn't just another invasion. This isn't just another Crimea, which was horrific. Yeah. This is something much larger because they can't, many Russians can't even, use MasterCard and Visa and Apple Pay and all of the things that people have gotten used to doing over the years.
And
Thaisa, I want to tie, go ahead, Dr. Matt.
Ben, let me get this question. Thaisa, and this is both to Thaisa and Nomiki. From your perspective, do you think that at this level, after 14 days, that there's enough evidence to cite Putin with war crimes? I get that war is ugly and dirty from its onset, but have there been specific actions that you all could point to that if the world were to charge him with war crimes, that they have the evidence to do so?
Excellent.
Absolutely. I think every Ukrainian now who faces the firing shots, firing missiles on civilian infrastructure now films this, and we send it to the email of the judge in Hague. I know that my family documented a lot of this, and many other people document this. So I'm pretty sure that even though it's been less than it's been 2 weeks, we already have enough evidence. And I would like also to add to the previous point, why winning the war would be important for America. President Biden himself portrayed Russia's war against Ukraine as a defiant struggle between freedom and tyranny. And this is not the war one can afford to lose, even though the battlefield is very far away from your homes in Ukraine. And have you noticed how many times Putin mentions the West in his statements?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, which is why we're bringing so much attention to it. We had a chance to speak last week with Ukrainian member of parliament, Inna Sovson. And one of the things that stood out to me, Thaisa, was the look on her face and the exasperation in her voice when she said that she never believed Ukrainians, at least a portion, never believed that he would actually do this. Could you speak to that reality and how that has changed and what the Ukrainian people, what their gaze is now? Where is their focus now as a united people?
Okay, our primary focus, of course, is to defeat our land and to save our sovereignty. But as for people, what they're thinking about, of course, they are full of hatred to Russians. I'm not going to lie. It's been growing exponentially day by day. And people are just fighting for their freedom, for their lives. They want this war to be over. There's not much I can say about it.
Yeah. Listen, I go ahead, Tamika. Go ahead.
I was just going to say this is a really important point too. I think, especially for those of us who are millennials, we've seen the implications of really bad foreign policy over the last 20, 25 years, and what it, what the ramifications are. This is Putin trying to exercise some sort of post-Soviet fantasy of Russia taking over the world, but it's not based in reality. And a lot of experts have said that he's been, especially in the last few years under COVID, increasingly paranoid, a little bit out of his normal state of mind. And so when you do this type of action on Ukraine, and it's all in his mind about unifying Russia again, what she just said was really important. They're really angry at Russia. It's having the actual adverse effect. It's actually giving people more of a need and want to be part of a NATO alliance, which she does not want, to be part of the EU, to be part of a stronger democracy. And I just don't see this ending well for Putin. But the problem is that he's not in a stable state of mind, that if he sees the writing on the wall, which who knows if he is right now, maybe that is where the nuclear aspect is such a concern, is that he's not in a stable state of mind.
I don't think there's any reason to believe that. And the U.S. I've just seen the report that the U.S. doesn't believe he's gone crazy too. I know that it's a convenient version to think, and I would be happy to think so, that he just got completely crazy and all Russians don't support him. But it's just not true, In reality, we are dealing with a collective Putin that includes current Russian leadership, oligarchs, and yes, some ordinary Russians who support the regime, who actively support the regime, or silently. And I can only sympathize with the minority who's against what's happening, and they are now facing the threat of 15 years in prison for just calling the war a war. But I would say, I personally don't see much prospect of, for example, oligarch revolt, because we have to understand that nowadays most of them are not just businessmen, but they are Kremlin bureaucrats who need to consider whether toppling Putin could lead to their own demise.
Well, Thaisa, let me ask you a question, Thaisa. In all of your experience, I was pleasantly surprised to understand the number of people in Russia who have protested Putin's invasion. Yeah. In your lifetime and in your reporting, have you ever seen under the Putin regime any type of outcry to the number of almost 6,000 Russians protesting any decision that Putin has made?
Of course, the situation is extraordinary, and people are risking their lives to go protest. So I honestly admire those Russians who are brave enough to go and express their will to stop this bloody slaughter in Ukraine. But to be honest, it's hard for me to say that 6,000 Russians is a large number. I myself was a part of Euromaidan, the revolution we had in Ukraine, and we were like 2 million people in Kiev with with the population, which is way less than Russian, were protesting against the president's decision, President Yanukovych, if you remember him.
Yes.
And people were killed there, but we still were standing there protecting our beliefs. So,
yeah. No, Thaisa,
Well, that's why
listen,
he's
I wanna
clamping
thank-
down, right? I'm sorry.
Right. Listen, thank you so much for spending this amount of time with us and helping us to understand a little bit more the nuances of what's happening there. We are standing in solidarity. If there's one thing that I heard throughout this whole conversation is the fact that the need for a no-fly zone in order to protect civilian structures, and the fact that there has been enough documentation for war crimes that Putin must be held to account. Just get the last word before we go, because we're going to go to a break. And Nomiki, if you could stay for a moment after the break, we can go a little bit more into Solidarity Wednesdays. But I just would like to, what can we do? Because honestly, across the ocean here, we do feel helpless, as if there's not much that we can do other than scream at the top of our lungs. But one of the things we are going to scream for is the no-fly zone, and we'll let the politicians figure out how to accomplish that. But if there's anything else that we can do on this side, please let us know. And thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. I would say that you can do is not to forget about what's happening in Ukraine, because, unfortunately, any tragedy, no matter how awful it is, over the time, it's just not on the front pages anymore. It's not discussed every day on news. So people just tend to forget and, get bored with this. So I would ask you to continue talking about and continue asking your government to impose a no-fly zone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Thaisa Simonova of the national reporter for the Kiev Independent. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll still be joined by Nomiki Konst, Dr. Carl Mack, and we'll begin with On the Clock right after this short break.
They too small, I got big dreams. You just starting, I'm way ahead at the end scenes. Started reading and dodging all of the quick schemes. Money like your Spotify, boy, I got 10 streams. And I'm still looking for more. My people, they got a soar, I'm putting that on the Lord. Ain't accepting, ignore, just kicking down all the doors. Guarantee you, boy, if I ask for it, it's gotta be real big. I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids, just kids. That's wealth years and years. Promise my brother soon as he out and finish this bid, we finna do it bigger than anybody ever did. The odds is real big, jobs that's real big. Satan trying a little, my God is real big. Stayed up on the grind on the cars is real big. I gotta do it big, the only way that I can live. And I promise I'm trying to. Before you count me out, homie, let me remind you.
Good morning, people. Y'all know who it is. Y'all know who it is.
Like lifestyle blind you. Let me rewind you. Back when I was broken, I couldn't acquire 2 cents, and now I got 2 wrists. They were sleeping on me.
Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Hey, y'all look clear today. Look at that. It ain't giving FAMU internet. It's giving very much Bethune University today. All standing with my maroon on. But good morning, everybody. Make sure that you stay tuned. We got more coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. Alicia, good morning to you. Special happy birthday shout out to Alicia. All that good stuff. Happy birthday, Alicia. Hope your day is
gotta do it big. That's the only way to live. Gotta do it big. Gotta do it
Jan, good morning. Six Dragon Daddy, good morning. Esther, good morning. Shout out Dr. Mack in the background. Good morning to you, Dr. Mack. Good morning, Brother Ben. Tiger, good morning. Lily, good morning to you, Mary C. Good morning, Mom and Daddy. I know y'all in the chat room lurking somewhere. Snack Panther, Iris Jones, good morning to you. Six Dragon Daddy, good morning. Hey, don't forget, Friday there is a patron party. Patron party Friday is going down. You don't want to miss it. Make sure that you are in the place, man. It's going to be a good one. Don't want to miss it. Y'all stay tuned, man. More coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Good morning, everybody.
Wind it up all night, baby, take your time. Let me know what I want. When you tell me what I want, when the neighbors yell turn down, we keep it going.
So
Shout out Dwayne in the background, always making me look good. I appreciate you, Brother Dwayne. Shout out to David as well, too.
Girl, you know you are a jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Sounding like you're wasting every time. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam.
Ryan, good morning, Miss Nuru. Sunny Right Grand Rising to you as well. Lisa, good morning. On and on it goes. Okay, good morning. Kareem Ransom, good morning.
Last weekend, you had me thinking, oh, must get in and lift my head up, like bum, bum, bum. Put back in rotation, cigarettes and that season, shine bright as that season.
Brother Bryce, good morning.
Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Sounding like you're wasting every time. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Sounding like you're wasting every time. Can't you? Can't make me feel like we could do.
All right, y'all, it is time now for more on the Benjamin Dixon Morning. So y'all know what time it is. It's 8 Eastern Standard Time, which means we are on the clock. Good morning, everybody.
Welcome back, everybody. We're on the clock. No Georgia Fort this morning. She is out saving the world, doing what she does. We are joined by my sister from another mister, Tamika Constant, as always, Dr. Carl Mack. I wanted to pick right back up in the conversation specifically about the no-fly zone, which has been up for consideration. Of course, there's fears, Tamika, and I want to come to you first. If something like this were to be enforced, because a no-fly zone has to be enforced, specifically, if it's enforced by the United States, then that presents a huge potential for this escalating out of control. Speak about the risk of the no-fly zone.
Well, it would, as far as I understand, it would have to be enforced by NATO. And NATO right now, this is such a great education moment for activists on the left to understand NATO, which has been a topic of conversation before. NATO's not necessarily in its strongest state pretty much since the Iraq War. There's just been a lot of bickering between countries that have very different agendas and politics right now. When Libya, when the actions in Libya occurred, NATO was not in agreement. You had Italy and France on different sides. So even though U.S. does obviously have a very strong voice, I think under both Obama and Biden, they were reluctant to overplay their hand and really a reaction to how Bush's foreign policy was led. So this would have to be NATO enforced, NATO agreed on. And as of right now, I think because so many different leaders in Europe understand the existential threat, they are right there versus us being overseas, it is much more sensitive that if you do a no-fly zone, it could escalate things. It could make this war. It could encourage other actors who are working and helping fund Putin right now. Let's not forget he has allies, other autocrats around the world, who might be seeing this as an opportunity to do similar things. So it's, I think the concern right now is that it's going to escalate the war. Of course, I think the other aspect of this is NATO and the U.S. in particular are really urging the Zelensky to take the lead, which is why they're willing to provide arms but not put boots on the ground, even though he has asked for support. Because again, our foreign policy and the foreign policy lessons post-Iraq war are to not invade. Is it perfect? No. There have been a lot of mistakes. Because you don't put boots on the ground doesn't mean that drones are the best option. But I think that folks need to understand that this is the mindset of where, at least the Biden administration, I understand they're coming from. But I will say in response to the last interview, while Putin, there are mixed reports about his mental state, he is still an insane person, and he's always been an insane person. Whether or not the stress of COVID, age, he's being incredibly isolated. He has not been around all of his staff and allies. He doesn't trust people. I mean, those reports I think are accurate, and that can lead to a lot of yes man syndrome. And if there are men around him who are encouraging him to behave this way, having a no-fly zone could possibly take him in a certain direction, and the risks are just way too significant.
I want to expand, and actually we have on the screen Sister Georgia Fort. I spoke too soon. I thought you were out saving the world, which you are always doing. Good morning, Sister Fort. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing that later today. So
that's not a problem. Listen, Georgia, I want to pivot to because this is Solidarity Wednesdays, and we still have Tamika Kuntz with us from the first segment. I want to pivot to the teacher strike that's happening in Minneapolis, because one of the number one things that we talk about during these Wednesday shows is the solidarity around workers and teachers being on the front line. Could you give us an update on what's happening with that strike?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a pleasure to have you as well. So thank you for being with us. The teacher strike, we're on day 2 now in the city of Minneapolis. Teachers are going to be rallying at the state capitol because there's actually a $9 billion surplus. So educators are going to the state capitol asking the governor why exactly some of those funds can't be allocated to classrooms, can't be allocated to more mental health services. Right now, we know that there's a student ratio of, I think, 1,000 students. There's only 2 social workers per 1,000 students. So inside the classrooms during this pandemic, kids are in need of more mental health services, more mental health support. And educators are standing up and saying, we're not going back in the classroom until we can get the funding to improve that ratio, class sizes, wages, all of these different things that are impacting not only the quality of life of the educators, but also the quality of learning that they can provide for our students. And so there has been some criticism from community members because obviously classrooms are shut down pre-K through 12th grade in the city of Minneapolis. So parents, once again, are stuck trying to figure out where can their kids go during the day while they have to work, right? But on the other side of that coin is teachers who are saying that our students are not getting a quality education. Yesterday, Ben, we saw thousands of educators and supporters who took to the streets to demand that their requests be heard. And again, when you look at the $9 billion surplus, I mean, the money's there. So we should really be asking ourselves, what is the resistance about here?
We have a clip. David, Dwayne, run the clip that gives us this update. I think it may be Voices, if I'm not mistaken, Georgia. We took it directly from your coverage of this strike. Do you want to tell us what this clip is, or we could just run it?
Yeah, so if it's from yesterday, thousands of educators were outside in Minneapolis rallying and basically just kicking off day 1 of this strike.
Let's take a look at that.
In this country, the richest country in the world, we are paying ESPs $24,000 a year. View is that everyone is standing for a living wage for our least paid workers. How is it that they try to talk about There's a Yiddish word. The fact they have you on strike is a shanda. It's a shanda. You want to be in schools with our kids. Then you need the fairness to actually do the work. Smaller classes, mental health support, and living wages so you can stay in Minneapolis without working 2 or 3 jobs.
As you can see, it's just thousands of people came out to support our educators here. And band, lots of dancing. I mean, the energy was high, but you heard it summarized there very clearly. There's 3 requests: livable wages, educators saying that they shouldn't have to go work 2 and 3 jobs. They shouldn't have to go live way in the suburbs outside of the city of Minneapolis to be able to afford a quality of life, right? They should be able to live in the neighborhoods that they're serving in. More mental health services for our students and smaller class sizes. They've made their demands very clear. And I think that all of those requests are very reasonable. I think that those requests also are very attainable when you look at the fact that we have a $9 billion surplus in the state of Minnesota. So why can't those funds be allocated to teachers in Minneapolis?
And so what I'd like to ask is, what have legislators said that $9 billion surplus is to be used
That's a great question.
Yeah, there's been, I think, some different proposals, but they haven't landed on anything yet. I will say I am getting emails almost every single day from the governor's office about a tour that they're doing across the state of Minnesota, allocating $300 million to public safety. So they're meeting with police chiefs in every city. They're meeting with police chiefs in every city across the state. They've made a huge emphasis on the cities that are, more rural area. They've gone to greater Minnesota. But I'm getting emails, updates about this public safety campaign where they're allocating $300 million to these different departments and meeting with the police chiefs and other stakeholders in their cities to find out what did they need money for. And so, I thought that was interesting on the backdrop in the wake of George Floyd here in this state where, we are supposed to be the epicenter of this global movement for police accountability. And we have a surplus of funding, yet and still the governor is doing this campaign that aligns with Biden's message during the State of the Union address to fund police. And so, I think when we see our children not having access to the resources that they need for quality education, we see their educators not having access to wages for them to have a livable salary, right? We here in the state of Minnesota, and this is parallel to what's happening in other cities too, right?
That's right.
Or other states. And so, but we have to ask ourselves, the old saying, put your money where your mouth is. And I think that's right. The state of Minnesota and other cities, states that are experiencing similar crises, it's clear where our leaders' priorities are.
And Georgia,
Miki, let me, Brother Mac, real quick, only because Nomiki is going to have to get out of here. I want to get Nomiki in here to speak about this because we've seen these teacher strikes really be a flashpoint in the recent years. I remember all the strikes that we saw in Wisconsin. With the time that you have left, Nomiki, could you just talk about that in context of the broader solidarity and tell everyone how they can reach you and support your work?
Thank you. Well, it's always, I love Wednesdays. It's a great way to start the day. And even when the news is so dire right now, it's inspiring to be with comrades, right? I think what's really important, and we've talked about this before on the show, teachers are the largest public sector workers in the country. They are the strongest union force in this country. They are the largest donors, the unions are the largest donors to the Democratic Party. I can't believe, Randy Weingarten, who was speaking there, I have seen her give that speech in different forms in so many different communities, whether it's a small room in Long Island or in Puerto Rico. I've seen her give the speech, or in Arizona. Teachers really have been on the front lines of these attacks and survived because they're so strong. I mean, think about it. If the average teacher is making $24,000 a year and staying a teacher, they are doing it because they love the work that they're doing. And I think we, as progressives, really need to step up I don't know how, but think about how we can support our teachers, because Republicans, the far right, the Koch brothers have been attacking them at the state level for decades now. But during COVID, they used every single scenario to really put teachers against the wall and make them out to be the demons. But they're what keep our communities together. We would not be the country we are today if we did not have public education. And I really feel for you guys. And I think every Democratic lawmaker really needs to understand. And maybe that's where we as folks can stand in solidarity and really challenging our Democratic lawmakers to make sure that teachers are protected and paid.
Absolutely. No, Miki, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on these Wednesdays.
See you today, later.
Good morning, sister.
Yeah, I'll see you in a few. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
I want to take the conversation right back to where you were, Dr. Mack. You were setting up a question there. I don't know if you recall it, but I want to dig down a little bit deeper into this.
Well, even before Sister Ford, I asked you the question, I literally wrote down that I have no doubt that if the police needed funding, that surplus would absolutely go to that. And when you juxtapose the idea of understanding that there is a $9 billion, not a $9 million, but a $9 billion surplus there, and teachers are so underpaid, your children are supposed to be so critical. It's not as though you got professional athletes asking for a raise. No,
that's right.
You were talking about teachers with a $9 billion surplus. And to that point, I would literally take a roll call. And going back to what Sister Nomiki said, I would literally take a roll call of every Democratic legislator to understand exactly where they sit on this situation and what their efforts are in trying to resolve this situation and give teachers equity and pay. And if any of them, as much as batting an eye in hesitation, know that they would be looking to be voted out of office, trust and believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
They would be on the clock.
Yeah, there it is. Speaking of on the clock, and Sister Ford, if you want to get in there, I want us to talk about, with the time we have left, this anti-lynching bill that finally passed in the year of our Lord 2022. We're finally getting this piece of legislation. I think the timing leaves a lot to be discussed. But what does that say about the United States of America? It took this long to get this type of bill to say that lynching is now a federal crime, a federal hate crime. And to add a little more context, it was initially blocked. It has been blocked for years, but this time around, it was blocked by Rand Paul of Kentucky, Republican from Kentucky, and he finally withdrew his block, and the bill passed, and we're expecting it to be signed into law. Sister Ford, what are your thoughts on this bill?
It's hard to fathom that it's 2022 and we're just now getting to this point where we can have legislation that makes lynching a hate crime, that there are people in our country that would oppose this after the racial terror that our ancestors experienced. Even when you look at Emmett Till's family, fighting for justice, hoping to get someone criminally, someone held responsible criminally for what happened to him, and that didn't happen. And so they were advocates of this bill and looking to this as being a part of that legacy, and the fact that it's taken this long, this many years, on one hand, yes, while it's a victory and it's a step forward for Black folks, on the other hand, it's a shame. It's a shame that it takes decades, and it takes how many Black people have been lynched, how much Black blood has been shed for us to say that this bill is important. It needs to be passed so that it can protect us. I'm reminded of a statement that was made by George Floyd's brother, who is still campaigning to get the George Floyd Policing Act passed. Despite the global uprising, despite everybody saying things have to change, there's still no federal legislation that's been passed in response to George Floyd's murder, right? And so a few weeks ago, when he was here, Floyd's brother, waiting for the verdict in the trial for the other 3 officers, he made the statement that we have legislation, federal legislation, that will protect the bald eagle. Right? We have federal legislation that will protect a bird. But what legislation on a federal level do we have that will protect Black people? And so when you think about this and you think about George Floyd Policing Act, I mean, is it going to take 4, 5, 6 decades before we can get a federal policing act passed that protects us? So it is, on one hand, it's a victory. I know that Emmett Till's family has been fighting for decades to get this passed, and so it's a huge step forward. It means so much for his legacy. But on the other hand, if this is the amount of time that it takes to get a federal bill passed, those folks who were lobbying for the George Floyd Policing Act, boy, they have a lot of work ahead for them.
That's right.
Georgia, if history is any indication, as we saw with this anti-lynching bill, there's a reason why Dr. King said, justice delayed is justice denied.
Yes.
And so I want to take us all back to December 6, 1865, when Georgia became the 27th state to ratify the 13th Amendment that ended chattel slavery in this country. My state, Mississippi, did not ratify the 13th Amendment until March 16, 1995, 130 years later, after the institution of slavery was deemed unconstitutional and illegal in this country. My state held on to it. That state that still flew that Confederate flag of white supremacy still held on to it. Rand Paul in Kentucky and all of this nation still hung on to that horrible practice of lynching because it was Black folks. When it comes to what the police does to members of our community, they are going to hold on. History is very clear about what they're going to do. That is why we must never, and Sister Ford, that is why we so need your independent, beautiful, strong, challenging voice every day to always bring to our attention what is happening in law enforcement. That's why what we are seeing in your state of Minnesota.
That's right.
They don't care about these children, but they can run out right now in the midst of a teacher strike and say, but we got $300 million. Police chiefs, tell us what you need. Tell us exactly what you need. Are they sitting down with teachers to say, what is it that you need? So in the face of us as a people, there's nothing surprising here. And this is why we must never, ever let our feet up off the gas of fighting for our equality here. In the words of Frederick Douglass, power will never be conceded, must always be taken in a struggle, and the struggle continues.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, Dr. Mack in Georgia, I don't want to close out this first hour without us getting our Black history in here. We normally start at the top, but we're going to end this segment with Black history. So, hey, Google, what happened today in Black history?
On March 9, 1841, in a court case argued by former United States President John Quincy Adams, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Joseph Sink and his men, who had been enslaved on board the ship Amistad. Born in Sierra Leone, Africa, Cinque was sold into slavery in Havana, Cuba in 1839 and placed aboard the vessel. Leading a successful mutiny, but lacking navigational skills, their captives sailed the ship to America instead of Africa. When they were arrested, abolitionists raised money for their legal representation. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Karl Mack.
So family, again, there was a movie made about this particular case, and that movie, again, is The Amistad. So when you go watch The Amistad, you'll be able to understand this case a little bit more. But what was interesting is you had a former president of the United States, John Quincy Adams, who absolutely, who actually represented Cinque and his men and ultimately got them freed.
That is an awesome story. I love that movie and the story of John Adams representing them. Georgia, as always, thank you so much. I know it's time for you to go out and save the world. The bat signal is on, so you have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Absolutely.
Have a great
We'll be back with more of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this.
A killing. I'm gonna break every ceiling, cause I need $1 million, but I don't need your money, you can pay me in respect, cause once I...
Right, I said we wait a few minutes, I got a few in the tank.
My God, can't take my eye off you. Can't take my eye off you.
How much time we need if you want to go until 9:05, 9:07, 9:08, whatever.
Got nothing on you. My heart is ready for something I have been had in a long time. True love crime, my open.
Okay, that's cool.
It may hurt for a while. Let's slow down, slow down. I can see behind that broken smile. Nice, sweet, smooth, like cocoa bread, cocoa bread. You're nice, sweet, smooth, like cocoa bread, cocoa bread. You're nice, like cocoa, you're nice, like cocoa bread.
That's right, Morris Reese. If you are in the sound of money, if you can hear my voice, then y'all didn't hit that right. Well, that's what I was trying to say. Maurice and Roller Dragon said it best. Shout out, Roller Dragon. Good morning to you. That dang old Snack Panther is in the building.
Ooh, passion from your truly. Let me know how you feel. Hope I'm not in too deep.
Hey, Dwayne. I got a vasectomy because I didn't want kids, right? But when I came home, they were still there. I thought that's not how that works. Oh.
I know you still. You're nice, sweet, smooth, like cocoa bread, cocoa bread. You're nice, sweet, smooth, like cocoa bread, cocoa bread. You're nice, like cocoa, you're nice, like cocoa.
Demetrius DeMarcus Bartholomew James III. I freaking love that name. I just had to say it on there. Good morning to you.
Cocoa bread, like cocoa bread. Boy can't take the eye off you. Them girl can't take the eye off you. My mind, yeah, in my mind, oh you. My mind can't take my mind off you. Baby, oh come be my lady. Oh give me a baby. Got me talking crazy. You're nice, sweet, smooth, like cocoa bread, cocoa bread.
So a son asks his dad, Dad, what is it like to be drunk? The dad replies, well, son, you see those two cars ahead of you? A drunk man would see four of them. To that, the son replies, but Dad, I can see only one car. drunk ass. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. Like it or not, it's starting up next here on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Y'all stay tuned. Y'all want to listen? No, won't listen. If you have not already, patreon.com/like it or not, patreon.com/TVShow. Also, act.tv/join. Y'all go join all these places, man. I know it's a lot. Twitch, YouTube, all these places.
You know how that go. Fatality, my diamonds that cold. Versace trunks, I hit my backstroke.
Industrial Arts, good morning. FAL Flaw Dragon, me too. I would love to be a superhero. Let her have.
Wanna vibe it to get away. I got the semi-fold weight. Don't step out the line like this a probate. You hit the line and try to locate. This for the time, got time for no day. War. Too many, I'm going. Too crazy and I got bad ones and they ready. A good time, so now it's into it, we left that. Can't remember anything, but I know we got lit. Good times. Live in the moment, feel like summertime. Assassination, not a word.
Let the heck shout out to you. Good morning to you.
The room is spinning, but I feel fine.
All right, y'all. Y'all, welcome back to the screen. My brother from another mother, Benjamin P. Dixon. It would be funny if it's not P and I just forgot.
DJ Exclusive, man. Appreciate everything that you're doing over there, brother. Listen, there is a story that I want us to talk about, and I think it's only appropriate for you and me while we're waiting on Rebecca to get here. And it's about a Pokemon card. And somebody going to jail. Was it 3 years? Let me look at my notes, because it's just some kind of story that don't really seem like it don't really make sense to be putting your freedom at risk for a Pokemon card. But I do know collectors. 36. So funds came from the Paycheck Protection Program loan. This individual got 36 months in prison for using $57,000 of COVID PPP loans to purchase a rare Pokemon card.
Rare Charizard Pokemon card. You got to remember, it's Charizard. Okay? Man got 80. I think his loan was like $80,000. I think maybe more than that. He spent 57 of that 80 on the damn Pokemon card. But now, granted, I can't fault the man because I've heard more people do more stuff with their PPP loans than that. So,
well, that's true. That's true. There have been a lot of people doing some weird stuff with their PPP loans. I just want to say this might be the craziest what I've seen yet. I'm not going to jail over a Pokemon card, but then again, it's the value. It's the value that it had to him, and it had a value of $57,000. So I want to ask myself the question: what would I spend $57,000 on to go to jail for? And it's still nothing, James.
It's not
no Pokemon card, no car, no studio equipment.
And at least if it was a vehicle, I could have been driving that vehicle. That Pokemon card is just gonna sit on the shelf somewhere on the table. You can't do nothing with it but look at it. That's all.
Here's a question: Does he get to keep it after the 36 months? Like, you do your time, you keep it, then.
That is now government property. It says it right there. The 57,000 Charizard card is now government property. That man ain't getting that card back.
Oh, man.
Doing 3 years in federal prison for a Pokemon card.
Yeah, that's wild. The other thing is Kanye West. We'll probably talk about this more when Rebecca gets here. And before I get to Kanye West, I wanted to just give a shout out to a couple of guests that are coming on in a few minutes. At 9:30, we're going to be joined by Anoa Chunga. She's our sister. She holds it down for me whenever I'm not here. Brilliant sister. She'll be joining us to talk about her most recent article for News One. And then later on, we'll be joined by State Senator Shevin Jones from the state of Florida. We're going to be discussing the anti-gay legislation, the Don't Say Gay legislation that just passed in the state of Florida yesterday, that's spreading all around the country. These people have lost their minds in terms of Like they just hate everybody, James. They just want to make everybody's lives miserable. They being Republicans and conservatives all across the country.
Man, I don't understand it. It's just like they have to have their hand in everything just to preserve what they believe the American dream is, or what family is to them. That's what they want. Ooh. And I'm just like, yeah, we're not gonna put up with it, man.
James, you just parsed the nuance there. I love it when people be cutting through the BS, because it is their perceived idea of what a family should be and what they consider to be normal. Because who the hell gives them the permission to determine what is normal and traditional for everybody else? Like, you don't come in my house and tell me what Thanksgiving and Christmas is supposed to look like. You don't tell me what is acceptable to me in my house. But we're
right, man.
We'll talk with Senator Jones about that. What was that, James?
Oh no, I was about to say you're right, man. I forgot I have a severe delay.
Oh yeah, man. No, it's Zoom. All right, that's it. I want to talk about this Kanye West documentary. Now, I haven't gotten a chance to watch it. I am a fan of the old Kanye. I really just cannot stand this new Kanye, to be honest with you. So I'm stuck between two extremes. I love the old Kanye because you cannot, but this new dude just got his validation from Tucker Carlson in this documentary on Netflix. At the very end of the documentary, surprise everybody, his credit validation, his pat on the back came from the chief propagandist at Fox News, Tucker Carlson, who was speaking about, just honestly, just kind of stroking his ego about his election and why for president, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, listen, I don't know if it was big enough, James. I know you watched the whole thing. If that few minutes was enough to take away from the whole documentary. But when you saw that, what did you think?
So honestly, yes, it did. The documentary is in 3 parts. Each part is about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours long. And, it shows you a lot. It shows you everything that Kanye went through to get to where he is. And also that a lot of what he's doing is also an act for TV, because it covers some of that stuff as well, too. Now, granted, he did ghost. I mean, you can tell after he lost his mom, it was very unexpected, and he started going a little bit off the deep end. And so the videographer that was following him around, Cootie, once his mom died, it seems like they separated for a while, and that's when Kanye just started going off the deep end. So finally, on the last part of the documentary, the 3rd season, he invited Cootie back in because you can tell that he's been going through some things. And especially when he started running for president. The reason why he started running for president, and I know a few people that do these things as well too, is because somebody told him that he can't do it. So Kanye is one of those people that if you tell him he can't do it, he's going to try to get out there and do it. So when somebody told him that he can't do it, he decided that he's going to run for president and show everybody that he can. Kanye is the type of person that thinks he believes that he can do any and everything that he wants to. And granted, he proved a lot of that stuff. So when they said that he can't run for president, he went on, decided to run for president. And that clip, they're in the car, everybody's together, and Tucker is like going in on him, saying that, Kanye said this and that, he's just like this and that. And Kanye was like, man, no, don't tell me not to listen. It's the truth. It's true. It's true. And at the end of the clip, Tucker says, I agree with him. He is the best, and I think he should run for president. He needs to go this and do that. And you can just Kanye like, yes, what I'm talking about. Yeah, like, you just received a validation from Tucker Carlson of all people. And that's when the documentary
of all
went
people.
Off, dude. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is when the documentary went off, and like the whole
that was the end. That was the end.
The whole docu-series for me was dead after that. After all of that, I'm just like, bro, I don't even want to watch this shit no more. I need like my 4 hours back that I spent watching this for the simple fact that you got your validation from Tucker Carlson of Fox freaking News, bro.
The top propagandist, the chief propagandist, man. Like when we talk about Tucker Carlson, we know we've covered him extensively. He is the leading voice against Black life against Black progress, against Black liberation, against, criminal justice reform, against anything this is not as egregious as him saying slavery was a choice, but it's not too far when you consider what Tucker Carlson is looking for is a world where slavery can be a choice again. So anyway.
And granted, they do cover a lot of those statements that he made. They cover some of that stuff in the documentary. And you once they go back and look at it, it's just like, yeah, man, you were off your rocker a little bit and you shouldn't have said that. And there were a few places that he went to recant that statement after he did research, because basically he spoke from a place of his ass ain't nothing.
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Thank you, man. That's absolutely right, man. Ignorance.
Straight ignorance. Straight ignorance. So how should we do this? I don't want to speak out of turn. David, Dwayne, what's the best way to do this? Should we do the music? Should we run the intro? Because I don't want to be.
Oh my God.
Just bring her ass here, because y'all ain't do that shit. Y'all ain't do that shit. Y'all ain't do that.
It's just this for me. It's like you don't take all of that. It's just like you don't gotta tap in and tap. See, this is the problem. Once we get to this show, it'd be like you start the first few shows like, "Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show." Yeah, keep it nice and light. You let Dwayne whisper something in your ear. You know what I'm saying? Then you get to this. Now it's like, Dwayne, how you want us to do it?
What you want to do now, man?
Okay.
What we gonna do now?
I ain't trying to step out of turn, but she here or not? Because I don't got time. That's what it's giving.
That's it. That's it. Like, we ain't got time. What you gonna do?
See what I get for trying to honor the queen, trying to make sure that we roll out the red carpet right. I'm not doing it well enough. Good morning, Rebecca. How you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing good, but I guess we gotta let the DJ do what it needs to do so we can do the proper introduction. But I am doing good this morning. We'll talk about it when we come back. We gotta make sure the DJ does what he needs to do.
So now we're gonna do it.
Yeah, now we're gonna do it.
Okay, I'm following instructions.
Like it or not, it's going down. Like it or not.
This is where you take us down, Dwayne. This is where you take us down.
I'm on screen still.
Down, so I guess we need the intro. And there it is. Welcome. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Dwayne ain't there.
Wait a minute, Dwayne.
I think Dwayne.
I'm here.
Daddy ditties.
Yeah, Dwayne.
I'm over here
taking care of his kid because nothing. Yeah. It's just. See, this is what I'm talking about. See, when it comes to like it or not, Dwayne be like, "All right, now let me just go ahead and take care of this baby." And then, let me go ahead and get on this meeting. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, go ahead.
I'm laughing because I thought we had switched over to the DJ and I'm over here just twerking and grinding and stuff to the music.
Both of y'all were.
Me too. I was like,
and I did not realize the camera was still on. Well, good morning and welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth.
And not care who doesn't like it.
It is Wednesday,
whining too.
I'm glad it wasn't on a single shot because we were about to get down.
You were giving lots of what you was giving us hip because you flexible now.
Listen, I'm going to the beach later on today, and I'm gonna do the full split. I'm doing a full split today. I'm there, y'all. I'm there, so I'm gonna post a picture of it.
Dang.
But yes, it's crazy. Like I don't know why at 41 years old now I'm flexible, but hey, we'll take advantage of it.
So I don't know what Ben doing because my balls too big to do a split, and they keep hitting.
My God. I don't even have balls. I used to be able to do the split. I was a dancer for most of my life. And honey, now I could just wiggle, and that's good enough for me.
Right,
I wind my waist. Thank you God I could still wind the waist. Wait a
minute.
But
James.
Half a split, tuck in that leg, ladies, and just reach for the other one. Good enough.
Right.
Good enough.
Flag on the play.
Oh my God! Wait. Oh. Did we cross over to the after party and we didn't get the memo?
No,
oh my God!
Flag on the play. We did, James.
See, I'm just keeping it real, y'all. Old man balls is a thing. Y'all need to learn. Y'all gonna get there one day. Hell.
I don't know that life. I really don't know that life. But ladies who can't do the splits, that's okay, because you could be flexible on one half of your body. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Women, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? It's
the good side.
The good side. You know how you got your good side? You got your one butt cheek that could be like, ow, ow, ow. The other one can't do it. I know what I'm talking about. You know exactly
Wait a minute. That's why you look back on one side. You're looking back on one side.
That's why you look at
that's the only side that works.
Yeah, I know. You got to know. And I know everyone who is watching knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly, Rebecca. They know.
Okay.
My God.
Right, I didn't mean to take y'all there, but y'all know. Ben started it.
He did.
All I said was that I'm going to do some more stretching later.
He can
do a full split.
You said you can hit the split.
I'm gonna do a full split. I'm about to hit the split today, y'all.
Rebecca. The light is working for you today, honey. You look beautiful over there.
It is.
Today.
Thank you so much.
It's really working. I love it.
Thank you. I actually washed the wig so that it can get to its natural state. Then I washed my natural hair, gave it a tease, and I brought it all together. I used a Taraji P. Henson products. Taraji called me, and it actually wasn't so bad. And and then I'm wearing this orange today. Orange.
No,
well, this is not for FAMU, but the fact that it offends you that I wear orange is it's very telling. But the shirt says Haitian Creative, and this was a gift from Haitians Who Blog. So thank you. Shout out to Haitians Who Blog for the Haitian Creative shirt. But thank you so much. I think orange looks good on me too. I do.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Everybody in the chat love it too. They like that orange making Rebecca pop. Okay.
Thank you. It's spring. It's spring. Even though it's not giving it in the background right now, it's pretty rainy out here. But it is spring, so we're tapping into spring. Next week, I'm going to give you guys, I'm thinking bright blue nails. Who knows where I'm going with that? But yeah.
Shout out to bright blue nails.
It's feeling. You guys are giving me Friday teas today. So
no, it's been a long 2 weeks, man. Like all jokes aside, like the world changed. All things said, and I'm thinking about while we have these few minutes before Noah gets here, the sister from the WNBA that got arrested. Did y'all see the photo they released of her? The Russian officials released of Brittany
Griner.
Yeah.
Yes. She. It was crazy because you see, this is what we were talking about yesterday. Yesterday they released this photo of her holding, basically her name, kind of like, it almost gives me like, if y'all don't give
hostage.
us what we want. Yes. It was definitely giving that. But because, and this is what I was saying yesterday, the Russians definitely kept that information from us, and they did so on purpose because she's been in there since January. What month are we in?
March. I had to think. Exactly. I had to think hard.
The news
January.
Dropped, like the end of January, and the news dropped.
Last week.
A week
last
ago
week,
here.
Yeah,
it made it here, and then they decided to drop it in Russia's mainstream media that same time that we got it. So understand that they are using this as a tactic. I'm telling you, like there is no way. And then they saw how we're all talking about it right now. They couldn't wait for this week's news cycle to come into play. And then to have her holding up the sign to let them know that she is, in fact, incarcerated there. But it was it was almost like, to me, a whistleblower of like, hey, we got what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Give us what we want. And that's what I'm getting from it. And it's like they want America to side with them or stop taking away from them. We understand that in the recent days, Joe Biden has decided to take away or stop funds, the banking with Russia, stop them from getting to their funds. And that pissed them off. But then, now businesses, McDonald's recently came out and said they are shutting down the McDonald's.
850 stores. 850.
And I was thinking to myself, well, who will be so affected by that if you got I don't know.
Listen,
but then again,
if they don't got them French fries hot and ready, there's gonna be a lot of mad Russians over there.
I don't really eat McDonald's. There was a time that I did, and that was way back when I was only making like $1, every 3 weeks. But but I don't eat McDonald's, so I really don't know the whatever. But I thought,
I can't stand y'all.
But they said McDonald's is going away from there. Apple took away their products while people were trying to get onto transit. Did you remember that? Like they shut down using Apple Pay and all of that while people were trying to get onto transit. Then people were stuck. And so a lot of just stuck. A lot of that is going on. But like I said yesterday to Dwayne, her holding up the sign, Brittany Griner holding up the sign, in this time, it's like, we see Biden saying we're going to take away this from Russia, we're going to take away this from Russia, we're going to take with this from Russia. But if we have yet to hear a statement on Brittany, we have yet to hear a statement on Brittany. And this is why I say, it's like you see these things going on. It would be an eye-opener if he mentioned her. It would be like, okay, he's doing something. Remember when A$AP Rocky was stuck over there? Donald Trump spoke for that man. And I know A$AP Rocky has said some things in his past. And we had to get him by the collar, you know what I'm saying? So you see what you did when you went over to the white folks' country? You see what happened? You know what I'm saying? But Donald Trump, who was the president at the time, don't like him, still don't like him. But he said something, and like, oh, hey, y'all, let him go. He's American. Let him go. We have our president in this particular time, and everything that is going on, you would think that he would mention her name. You would think that he'd say, we're working on something. We're trying to figure it out. The odds are against us right now, but she is American, and we are going to make sure we save ours. But it just makes me go, And like I was saying yesterday to Dwayne, isn't that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious?
No.
You don't find that suspicious?
No. Because what about the rest of I'm sure she's not the only American over there. Is she the only man? So sure you want him to come out and say something about her, but what about the rest of them that's over there? I read it the other day that they just had to rescue 2 babies out the NICU from Russia. They brought them back to the States. So what about the rest of them? Like, I mean, I get what you're saying, but what gives Brittany Griner special privilege?
Because they're utilizing her. Because they're using her. They are literally using her as a.
I don't think so. Because the United States had this information about her for weeks. It didn't.
Have they?
The government didn't just know she was in jail when the news picked it up.
Media.
Come on.
I would agree there. I'd agree with that.
I still think at the end of the day,
I don't see why y'all points aren't.
She was crying, so I had to put her to sleep. So now I'm
that's what we figured, Dwayne. We already knew.
But she didn't have to. But you got to make yourself known before. I didn't summon you. I just mentioned your name. But I will say this though, listen, anywho, now I will say this though, I hear what you're saying. I don't feel like everybody was privy to the fact that, but there could have been government officials that knew. I mean, government usually knows these things, right? But the fact that, now that it came to light, now that everybody knows, and now that they know we know, and I think they're using her as a pawn. And the fact that, and I understand what you're saying, there are people over there that are stuck. There are babies over there that are having issues. There's a lot that's going on. But the fact that they're putting this girl, they're using her as a pawn in the media right now and throwing her name around, throwing her photo around. The fact that we all know that this is going on. We're privy to what's happening in the middle of this whole war and things like that. It's like she shouldn't be used this way. And especially because she's been working for the people of Russia. She's been benefiting that country. But as an American, we should be sticking beside her. And I think our officials, like the president of the United States, should be doing more in this case with this information. He should be making a statement. There should have been a statement made. Just like they have working 6 jobs to, accommodate the Ukrainians that are coming here. I understand that too. I get it. So I get it. They needed the help. But also we have one of ours that are out there who is being used in, Russian media. Her face, her likeliness, her name is being thrown around while her family can't get to her. It's right. In the middle of all of this that's going on.
So yeah, and I will say I see what Dwayne is saying. I see what both of y'all are saying. I really think it's one of those things the Russians are trying to use her for her celebrity status, and I think that's why that they're not putting any other Americans out there. They're just using that one because, okay, maybe she has a little FaceTime with the WNBA over here in the States, and of course she plays for Russia. So let's use her to put it on the screen just for propaganda.
Yeah, I mean,
and you did mention yesterday. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I may be way off base here, but I'm not saying that she's guilty, but I mean, we're talking about her like she's a prisoner of war. You know what I mean? Like she went over there to fight.
Right.
And
but yeah, I mean, she still falls in the same category, though. It still falls in the same category.
She is a prisoner of war. Maybe not. She didn't know that she was going to go in there into that whole situation, but they are utilizing her in the middle of this war. She is literally, she's in prison, right? Or jailed.
But if she ended up in prison for legitimate reasons, it's totally different.
But you know, but you know, Dwayne, like we talk about this all the time in American situations. Somebody that ends up in jail for God knows how many years just for selling some weed or being caught for being high or whatever the case may be is ridiculous. I believe that it's the same thing. They're holding her at this point in time, knowing I'm pretty sure that she can get out. I'm pretty sure that if it was a normal day or whatever the case may be, she would have the means to get out. But because of the circumstances,
we don't know that though. We don't know what their laws are regarding hash and if you got however much it is, if you got hash or any kind of narcotic or any kind of drugs and you get to the airport to board an international flight, it doesn't matter how much it is, that's trafficking. So we don't know what their laws regarding trafficking are. So I'm not saying that she did it, but if she did end up in prison for legitimate reasons, it's totally different than her just being a political prisoner.
I actually hear both of y'all, but I'm gonna err on the side of F Russia's laws, man. F Russia top from the rooter to the tutor. They don't give a damn about nobody else right now. They don't give a damn about the LGBTQI community. They don't give a damn about Ukrainians. They don't care about black folks. They don't care about nobody but Vladimir Putin's desire. And I want to qualify this. Not even F Russia, but F Putin. Like for real, in any kind of their laws, because he is not recognizing the laws of the international community. So, and here's the other side. That's our sister. So if we had an opportunity to get in and get her and get out and not cause a nuclear war, do it. For me personally, I'm not telling the American government to do it because they don't ever do anything good. Y'all stay out of it, America, because y'all mess up everything.
And then I'll just end it with this. It's very, I see, I know you say you don't find it suspicious, but I find it very suspicious that in this particular time, it is literally lined up this way. If they wanted to make this such a hot story 3 weeks ago, they could have, right, in the Russian media. But they chose this particular moment to drop the news and then have her up there just standing up with a little piece of paper like, this is the only way we'll get you out. If we get what we want, and then we'll free you, or whatever the case may be. In America, did she have day, on her basketball jersey, I think, as well, too? Who knows? She had that outfit on for days, or they done put that. They was like, go get her shit.
Put it back on.
Let's put that on her, just so y'all know that she's a basketball player, or whatever the case may be. Okay. So whatever the case may be, though, in this particular moment, like every day here in America, we're fighting like fights like this. Simple things people are getting held for just because the government feels like they could do whatever they want with them, or, the judicial system feels like they could do whatever they want with them. That's literally the life that we live every day. And I understand this person may have broke the law. You see what I'm saying? But we know that people can do the extreme, give the extreme time, take away their rights from them in that moment. And what we could keep saying is that she probably did it. I don't know. So she deserved all that, especially during this time. I just can't sit on that. I just can't. Can't do it. Yeah. Can't do it. Can't do it.
Yep.
But,
well, speaking of,
is it Noah here?
Because I think this is an amazing tie-in. I want to bring in our sister Noah Chunga and discuss her latest article for News One, Finding Tamika. Erica Alexander narrating a new Audible series challenging media bias toward missing Black women. I think this is an important tie-in. Good morning, Noah. How are you?
You on mute, girlfriend?
Good morning. I'm so rusty.
Sis, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thank y'all for having me.
No problem.
Always.
Yeah, this conversation was super exciting to have because it's Erica Alexander. I said to my kids, I was like, yo, I talked to Maxine Shaw from Living Single. And my son was like, what's Living Single? I'm failing as a parent. But he did remember her as Pam from The Cosby Show. So that was like, oh my God, you talked to Pam. But it's interesting what the younger of the two remembers. But anyway, Erica Alexander and Tamika Huston's aunt, Rebecca Howard, came together to produce and write this It's a neo-noir true crime drama series. And Audible doesn't call these podcasts because they're trying to branch out and have their own brand, right? Like these are audio series. It's about a 5-hour, 42-minute in total runtime, but it is, telling the story through the voices and experiences of people who knew and loved Tamika. And at some point you hear Tamika herself coming through and telling her story. So it was really cool talking with them. And once I got past my fangirl and actually did my job, one of the things that her aunt talked about, she is a lawyer and a PR person. And so when Tamika first went missing back in 2004, this is coming on the heels of Lacey Peterson and Chandra Levy going missing. So she thought, hey, we checked these different boxes. This is a bright, brilliant, amazing young woman. She's missing. Of course, the media is going to care. Unfortunately, it was very, very difficult for the family. Even having someone who knew about media and PR involved, it was very difficult for the family to finally get like the pickup. And so they finally started getting a few breakthroughs. I think Dateline finally covered Tamika's story, but covered Tamika's story as a part of a conversation about how Black women's stories weren't being covered, right? So it was giving her coverage, but not the full attention to Tamika's story itself, right? Right. She also talked about how this was amazing how the lines connect, that a young producer at America's Most Wanted, senior producers kept blowing past the story. They weren't interested, whatever the case may be. But a young Black producer by the name of Tiffany Cross picked this story up as something that was important to actually tell. And Tiffany Cross from the Cross Connection, which I discovered through the course of this conversation, actually helped the family, through her coverage or through her field producing of the story and getting this on America's Most Wanted. It actually helped the family get one of their biggest breakthroughs in this case. That ultimately it turned out that her partner at the time, was actually not just the cause of her disappearance, but her unfortunate subsequent murder, as the family later found out. Wow. So this was a really interesting. It's different from some of the coverage I usually do because it's also about the artistic exploration and telling our narratives and stories. And so even though we're 18 years or so after Tamika has gone, missing, having the conversation about her life, her disappearance, her death, having the conversation about how the different pieces with media, with law enforcement and stuff came together is still really important. And the way in which culture is interwoven. Tamika and her aunt, on her mother's side, they are part Ethiopian. And so there are musical interludes that the audio team built into the narrative itself. So the storytelling is, yes, you have Erica Alexander narrating, you have the voices and interviews of loved ones, but you also have, this musical genius that has been embedded into the overall production itself. So, I would never go hard for anyone's thing. And I'm not about brand promotion for any Audible, Spotify, any of these people. But this is a project that I think actually deserves a listen. And if you don't have an Audible subscription or anything like that, I think you can actually get a free trial to be able to listen to this.
Wow. Yeah. Yes, you can. Because I get the emails all the time. But this story is very important. Right. I think it also shows the disparities. I think talking about Tamika, that was, not the first instance, but a time when somebody reached out to the media to try to get assistance. And I know that was in 2004. Back in 2002, I believe, and I think we can all remember this. Remember when I think Lacey Peterson went missing, the pregnant woman who went missing. And we knew about that because it was everywhere. We followed it. Coverage. We related to it at some point as far as she was a woman, she was a family person. Oh my goodness, a sweet person, how the media painted her. Yet, I believe that's why when, Tamika went missing, they thought, okay, we have a woman who's gone missing, and if we could just go to the media and get assistance. But it was like pulling teeth. You know, we would never know about this story if it wasn't for, you know, people like Erica bringing it to light, and people like you covering her, bringing it to light. And that, honestly, that conversation, you know, I know has been, you know, as a result of us talking about the Black girls who've gone missing recently. It's like, if we're going to talk about this, we got to understand the reason why these stories aren't getting any light. We can take it way back to the early 2000s. We could even take it further back than that. For a long time, it's historical. We, especially Black women, don't get the attention when we go missing. And it's like, by the time the investigation needs to happen, you know, we get things like with the recent girl who was on the Bumble date, right? The police officer stated he seems like a good guy. Right. And that was just enough for them to go to sleep on every single day of what happened to that girl, to get the correct information, to go and, you know, and investigate and start asking the right questions and doing the right thing. And so for our missing women, when these police officers or when law enforcement or when the media just doesn't care, it just becomes another day where a Black woman went missing. We probably may never find out what happened to them, when sometimes it's right under our nose. But because nobody cares to do the work. Nobody cares. Yep. It's us having to do the work ourselves, and we aren't even trained for it. Now we become actual, you know, investigators and, you know, things like that. So,
talk about it.
What the one I found, like, Tamika's case was actually referenced in like prior interviews with the founders of Black and Missing as one of the cases that I think they're actually from the same town in South Carolina as Tamika's family. And this was one of the cases that really actually caught their attention when they were deciding to start the organization, from what I was reading. But Black women and girls make up 34% of missing people, despite only being, I think it's 15% of the female population of the country, right? So we're overly represented, like, unfortunately, with many indicators, we're overly represented among you know, missing and murdered women and girls. I mean, we saw last year cases of young Black men as well, like college students, grad students disappearing. So we know it's not just Black girls. I warn both my kids all the time when they're, you know, out and about being conscientious and careful. But I think what you were saying, Rebecca, is just spot on in terms of, you know, we thought that, or we think that it should make sense if a person is missing, right, and a family needs help, and it's not just they're just trying to get shine or attention. Like, putting attention on these cases can sometimes help make the difference in terms of maybe someone might have seen something and getting tips and stuff. But also just thinking about all of this, like something that Erica said during the conversation was really interesting, is that Black women are often like relegated to particular characteristics, right? Like, Black women are strong, Black women are sassy or angry or whatever the case may be, right? We're these individualized, like, boxed in things, but very rarely are Black women given the space and grace to be characterized, to be depicted, to be shown in our full, complete selves, right? And so their purpose with this audio series was to tell Tamika's story, but tell Tamika as a full, complete person and all her complexity and honoring her memory in that way, and not just boxing her into only this thing that happened to her that unfortunately was what ended her life.
Wow. It's so much. If you don't mind, I want to ask about when you fanned out, because these stories are heavy, and it's happening over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And it seems like there's fewer and fewer news articles and attention being paid to it. What was it like to interview Sister from Living Single? What was that like?
She is pretty, you know, Ben, you and I have interviewed some characters, right? Like, so, but she is a pretty down to earth, dope person. It was, you know, there are things that I was trying to figure out what else could I do with some of this interview, because we started talking about, because she's a graphic novelist. Erica Alexander is a writer, right? She co-founded a media company called Color Farm Media, and she has produced at least, I think, written and produced at least one graphic novel series, if not multiple. So she is a big fan of sci-fi and Afrofuturism, and was just talking a lot about, we ended up talking about Octavia Butler, because we were talking about like narratives, right? And how we're crafting new ways of telling stories and making sure that people are being seen and heard through the narratives that are being produced. And so obviously that led to a conversation about Octavia Butler. We were talking about the way her brain works. She has a brilliant big brain, right? She may not have been a lawyer in real life, but like her character, Maxine Shaw, like she's a barrier breaker. She has a really brilliant galaxy brain. And so it was really interesting. It was a little challenging at times, keeping the conversation like going on track. But I love that though, because the interconnectedness and watching, the synapses firing and watching the connections like just be formed as she was speaking, she and, Rebecca Howard, like they were just the two of them together. Like they had not met before they decided to do this project. They had a mutual friend who was just reaching out to Miss Howard and was just like, have you considered doing anything else with Tamika's story? And she was just like, this was such a painful experience for their family. And so to reopen that wound again, to tell this story, it had to be worthwhile. And then they had such a synergy when she sat down with Erica. So there is an empathy in her as well in terms of telling this type of story. She also had a podcast series she did apparently last year. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm going to dig into it now, about reparations. So there are these stories that through her company that Erica is trying to help produce and write, because she also helped write. She co-wrote Finding Tamika as well as narrate and co-produce. They also got support from a new venture from Charlamagne the God and Kevin Hart. I'm the last person to give either one of those two any type of credit for anything, but they appreciate it being picked up by their production company. And this is one of 5 audio series that their production company is doing with Audible. And this was the first one. And they said, from their experience for Erica and Rebecca, this was really important that they were the first ones out the gate. And Women's History Month made a good time to make this mark and lead this conversation.
Of course, because you know how we going to do it anyway. We're going to treat Women's History Month as Black Women's History Month, and we're going to honor all the Black women who are doing it big. And listen, she will always be Erica in my heart. If you guys haven't watched right now, available on Hulu, it is Living Single is on there. You could rewatch it. I do it all the time when I go and I work my corporate 9 to 5. I leave it in the background so I can kiki with Maxine Shaw, attorney. And Maxine Felice Shaw, attorney. At law.
I mean,
okay?
we didn't have many examples of Black women. We still don't have many examples of Black women as attorneys and stuff on TV. We have a few more, right? But like we had
shout out to Maxine.
Yeah, we had Maxine Shaw, and we had Cree Summers went to Freddie Brooks went to law school.
Yep, that's right.
Toward the end of a different world. So like growing up, like, for me as a former attorney, so that was my fangirling bin. For me as a former attorney, I was like, I just want to say the little Black girl decided to become a lawyer is just so excited to talk to you, because like
that's
you were everything.
Absolutely. It's like it comes full circle for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
I love it. I wish. I can't wait for those moments to tickle me in my spirit too. Once I meet up with somebody, I don't know, just fangirl out, just fall on the floor and be like, "Oh, excuse me." Now to the questions. You know what I'm saying? But,
the other time it happened to me was with Barbara Lee. With Representative Barbara Lee. I was like, oh my God. Then
that happened to me too. Matter of fact, the first time I spoke to Barbara Lee.
Now.
I wasn't even prepared to ask a question. So, but Noah, listen, thank you. I'm gonna tune in or listen to this series. Thank you so much for bringing it to our attention, and we look forward to you coming back here anytime you want to.
I appreciate the offer. See y'all later.
Shout out to you, Noah, and I honor you as well, because you have been a mentor to me, and just seeing you flourish and move all through this thing like you do, and kicking cancers behind, and all kinds of good stuff. So I honor you in this month of Women's History Month. Love you. Go be great. We'll talk later.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, now I'm going to go cry. Bye, y'all.
Oh, listen, we have had a jam-packed show, and we actually have one more interview because this one is super important. I want to bring in State Senator Chevron Jones from the state of Florida. This is a conversation we've been trying to have with this brother for about a week or two now, and it has everything to do with the Don't Say Gay anti-LGBTQ bill that I believe passed in the state of Florida. Good morning to you, Senator Jones. How are you?
You on mute.
Everybody's on mute this morning, but that's okay. every guest, but this
he's over here adjusting himself. You are on mute, sir.
I'm sorry. I will give him a shout out, and I didn't even know it to my FAMU sister. Y'all see that?
Thank you. I know you heard.
See, that means that it needed to be
Give him the voice. Give him the voice. I know what he's saying. I felt that in my shanana. All right. My rapper brother.
God didn't want that ugly on our show this morning.
But listen, not at all. Oh, Rebecca, don't make me play the song, Rebecca.
Let the senator speak. Hi, Senator. How are you doing this morning?
You know what? I tell you what. Simply because of the seriousness of the issue, we're going to table our HBCU rivalry to come in solidarity around LGBTQ. Child, Rebecca, let me do this story with the senator. I know he is our homeboy. And we go back to like playing drums in church together. But I want Senator Jones, tell us where we are. There was a vote yesterday. What is the situation with this anti-LGBTQ and anti-trans legislation that's passing in Florida?
Yeah. So yesterday and the day before, we asked questions and did amendments on the Parental Rights and Education Bill. That is the name of the bill, but it has been known as the Don't Say Gay bill because there's a certain provision in there, which is in Section 3 of the bill, that speaks towards sexual orientation and gender identity cannot be taught in grades K through 3 or in any classrooms that is not age appropriate. The problem is the age appropriate portion of it that no one seems to know what the definition of age appropriate is. But let's be clear about it. The bill sponsor made it extremely clear on what that bill is and what that bill is intended to do, and that is to censor teachers from socially engineering, his exact words, socially engineering children into becoming gay. He said the quiet part out loud.
Wow. Wow. Jesus Christ. Rebecca, go ahead.
I think I think, in what they're going to, it's a religious kind of thing, and they going to do the evangelical, really right, push or leaning conversation where it's like, we don't want to push these kind of ideals on the children. And what happens is it's going to gravitate towards people who hear that. Like, a lot of the religious folks and people who are saying, we don't want our kids watching, these kind of things on television. Those type of people are going to gravitate towards this and not really see what's underneath it, what they're actually trying to do. Are we really going to sit here and say that these classrooms are teaching, kids to be whatever sexual orientation? I didn't grow up in that, going to school with that, even though they were pushing all these other things on us. When it comes to that, we really just went to school because we were learning. We knew we had gay teachers. We knew we had black teachers. We knew we had white teachers. And now we're sitting here saying that this is what's being taught to kids. This is part of that critical race theory idea, and now they're trying to formulate it into sexuality. But why are you pushing? Why are you even making laws like this for children? Where are you guys' mind at?
Yeah, well, here's the thing is, I think if you see what's happening across the country, this is a culture war that they see and they saw that it works in elections. And so because they filed these bills as a guise to people who don't understand the process, and it talks to their base. And because it does talk to their base, many people within that base, they believe that they are doing the right thing. Like, for instance, you call it the Parental Rights Bill. If I knew nothing else as a parent, I would be like, absolutely, I want to make sure I keep my rights. So yeah, I'm with the Republicans on this, not realizing that the nuances of that bill is hurtful and harmful to a marginalized community. And I also think that is important to point out that the Republicans are doing this because they desire to keep inching and pushing at the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court is stacked. And so they want to get these things challenged, to put these things into law and to law for forever because they think they can and they believe they can. And in some states, they can.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? It's like these, not only DeSantis, we can see who's obsessed with people's sexual orientation. Now he's taking it down to the children. And then we have, people like Rick Scott also, who is creating, 11-point page, whatever agenda kind of situation with these things included into it. These Florida leaders aren't focusing on, I want to say they aren't focusing on what Florida really needs, what the constituents really need, but I can't say that's not normal. I can't say that that's not something that is out of the ordinary. But we have people like you, Senator Jones, who who are in the room, who are there to fight. And I appreciate that because there's so much more that we need to start talking about. But we also have to protect our children, and not be. The fact that they're talking about this to me is them pushing on ideals onto kids. That's right. That's to me what the most important that we should be talking about.
It isn't. You know what was sad? And talking about going to fight, I have to go vote in 10 minutes. But I'll say this, that you're absolutely right. That first of all, let's be clear. I believe myself and all of you all in here and every same person that will sit in these chambers I'm about to go in a few minutes know good and well that it is not our goal to teach children in grades K, grades 1, 2, and 3 about sexuality. And the Republicans know that that's not happening. They know that that's not happening. But the fact that they get aroused out of doing it, and that's why they're doing it. But I'll tell you this, that I think they just hit a hornet's nest because those suburban moms and those independents who usually vote Republicans, these are issues that they do not want to deal with, and they don't want to have their elected officials dealing with. And so I believe that they're going to see just exactly how well that their plan is working sooner than later, though.
Yeah, agree. And I really think it's going to be one of those things. The next step is going to be get to push the gay teachers or the ones that identify in the LGBTQI community. The next step is going to push them out of the classrooms. Yeah. That's
exactly what's about to happen. But look what we're about to do today. Today, in a few minutes, we're about to go downstairs and we're about to fight on the CRT bill and also about the banning of books. They're banning To Kill a Mockingbird. They're banning All Boys Aren't Blue. I mean, these are books. We're about to do this entire fight right now. In 5 minutes, it's about to happen. And this is the type of stuff that we're dealing with right now in the state of Florida. I believe in my heart. Hear me when I'm telling y'all, I believe in my heart that the Republicans know that they are losing headway in these states. And this is a lot of their last-ditch efforts.
I hear you.
Yeah.
State Senator Jones, I know you got to get to the Florida vote. Thank you for your time this morning, sir.
Have a good one.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Take care. And we will forgive you for being a FAMU rattler.
He gone because he wants to go vote. He wants to go do as a rattler.
But we forgive him. We forgive him.
Representing the highest of Seven Hills. He's about to go be in that room right now and go vote for the right thing. About to fight.
I thought Dwayne muted. I was going to say, yes, Dwayne, you muted.
Want to start disrespecting folks. Rattlers are in high places doing what needs to be done around here.
Oh, okay? Benjamin.
I did it. That's my fault, James. You're right. That's on me. That was a bad choice on my part. Listen, tomorrow, before we go wherever we're going next, tomorrow we're going to be joined by Jeff Charlotte. He's the author and documentarian of The Family, which shows you, Rebecca, what you're just talking about, James, there's a creepy religious underbelly in this country that really is trying to do some freaky kind of scary fascist stuff. He's been documenting it for years. He'll be joining us tomorrow. We're going to flesh the rest of that out.
All right.
Yeah, man. It's really one of those things where I'm just like, what is the point? What is the purpose? This whole agenda with everything and everything he's doing down there. DeSantis has been really a thorn in my freaking side.
All of them.
All of them. And just seeing that all the stuff he's been doing, like him cussing at the kids, you can take those masks down. That's not real. You don't have to do that. Man, shut the hell up, you dumbass.
That's the one. That's the one, James. That's the one that almost listen. Like he almost needs to get anyway. I can't say that on air, but you don't mess with people's children. When parents have given their children instructions, don't bring your little dopey looking, ill-fitted suit wearing ass on there and tell parents not to see. Let's move on. What we got next, y'all? Because I can't stand that man. I can't stand that man, boy. I tell you, y'all pray for me.
Yeah, but you see, we can't. We live in a state where, in Georgia. I'm out here in Georgia, and we got the being from Florida, and just understanding that we got the and then Texas right up the street.
Come on,
right there.
Yeah,
all of
say that.
They literally they go to the same church. They go to the same. They watch the same movies. They sit in the same KKK rooms.
They wear the same draw.
Literally. They wear exactly the same clothes. Like they look exactly alike. And it's like if one does something, they got to call the other one and says, "Hey, let me tell you about this stupid ass idea."
They share the same sister wives. I mean,
you literally have to copy and paste, and then and give it to your constituents as well. Yeah, they're not going to go for it, but I mean, come on. Like this is what's going to sell. This is what's going to get the people going. This is innovative, dumb stuff. It's going to work out. This is exactly what we do all the time, and literally they do it. This is us thinking about self and not our people. But yet we know we're going to get the seats because historically, white men like us continuously get the seats. But now, just as Senator Jones said, Republicans are starting to lose ground. The people that used to support them on some things, their kids probably are the ones who don't identify with being a certain gender
come on.
And this is now they're like, you know what? My kid might put me on TikTok if I speak against him. I cannot follow you on what you're doing. My kid might put me on blast on the TikTok. You know what I'm saying? But no, seriously.
I'm going to tell y'all, the truth of what it really is that they in the closet they damn self and they just scared to come out.
You never know.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Break and the after party.
After the main show.
You guys,
we'll be back.
Have a good Wednesday.
Yep.
Happy Women's History Month. We got more coming up in the after party.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all again for joining us this morning. Shout out to everybody that came through on the show this morning. We greatly appreciate y'all. And if you are not in the after party, where the hell you at then? All right, y'all. Your affirmation for today. Okay. Regardless of what is thrown at me, I will still be a good person. Regardless of what is thrown at me, I will still be a good person. Until you rest you rattle the harness nest, then I got the attack. Anyway, y'all, we thank y'all. We love y'all so much. If you're not at the after party, we'll see y'all tomorrow.